Hello, team players. Today I'm here to talk about the dwarf in Starfinder 2e. That's right, you can play a dwarf in Starfinder. In fact, we've got some brand new options for dwarves in Starfinder. Keep in mind, you can also choose any of the dwarf options from Pathfinder 2e as well. Let's start with the basics. Dwarves are pretty much the same when it comes to basics as they are in Pathfinder 2e. However, there is one major difference, and that is the clan crystal ability. Instead of getting a clan dagger, you get a clan crystal. This is a simple one-handed weapon created with your crystal. This crystal cannot be removed, and selling the weapon or the crystal is taboo and earns you the disdain of other dwarves, just like the clan dagger in Pathfinder. After that, we've got some Dwarf Heritages to talk about. First is the Citadel Dwarf. You become trained in survival. In addition, when you quickly succeed on a survival check to earn income by mining, you uncover a vein of highly valuable minerals. The next time you use survival to earn income in the same location, you treat the task level as one level higher. If you're master in survival, it's 2 levels higher. And if you're legendary in survival, it's 4 levels higher. The DC for the task, however, remains the same. In other words, basically, if you quickly succeed at survival to earn income, then you get to make more money at a lower DC, which is a massive deal because money is important and can really help the team. Then we have the Deep Space Shrine Guard. You have an attribute boost to charisma and a flaw to wisdom instead of the other way around. You also become trained in deception. And if a creature owes you money or has caused you significant financial loss, you gain a bonus on deception checks to lie to them and perception DCs against attempts for them to lie to you, as well as intimidation checks to coerce them or demoralize them. This is a pretty great out of combat thing, and it leads to some pretty good feats later on. And, having a dwarf that's actually good with charisma is a big deal. Now, perception does go off wisdom, so that is going to be lower because you do have a flaw in wisdom. But this kind of makes up for that by at least giving you a +1 on perception checks to tell if they're lying to you. This one is actually very good outside of combat and can be very helpful, especially with the feats that you can take later on. Next up is the Industrial Dwarf. You gain the additional lore feats for your clan's primary industry, such as warfare lore. If you craft a common item of your level or lower that's associated with your industry, you automatically know the formula and can use the lore skill in place of crafting. You can also use your proficiency in lore to qualify for crafting skill feats, but only when you're interacting with items related to your clan's industry. This is a fantastic one if you want to play an alchemist in Starfinder, especially if your clan's industry is alchemical or just any class that wants to make items. This is another great one, especially since items are a huge deal in Starfinder. Next up is the Questbound Dwarf. You become trained in piloting. And if you succeed at a piloting check to navigate or plot course, you get a critical success instead. You also gain a bonus to piloting checks made to recall knowledge about starships. In other words, big thing if you're wanting to be a pilot. And knowing about starships is a big deal in Starfinder as well. I highly recommend this heritage if you're wanting to be a pilot of a starship. And finally, for new heritages, we have Salvation's End Dwarf. You have familiarity with archaic weapon. In other words, weapons that you would normally use in Pathfinder campaigns. And for the purposes of proficiency, you treat one martial archaic weapon of your choice as a simple weapon, or an advanced archaic weapon as a martial weapon. In addition, if the weapon has the dwarf trait, and you succeed at a saving throw against a fear effect while wielding it, you get a critical success instead. Otherwise, the weapon gains the dwarf trait as long as you wield it. Now let's talk about first level ancestry feats for Starfinder, starting with Dwarven 0G familiarity. You aren't off guard or clumsy when untethered in a 0G environment. At 13th level, you gain a climb speed of 20 feet as long as you're in a low gravity or 0G environment. This one's okay. It's not great, but, you know, it is a good out-of-combat thing. But you could definitely use this if you run into these environments, but otherwise it's kind of situational. Moving on, we have Grouchy Nature, which can be used once per hour. If you spend more than 1 minute grumbling or grousing, you gain a +2 bonus on the next skill check you make within a minute of your continued grumbling. This is fantastic. If you can spend some time grumbling and then get into an encounter, this is fantastic because you can then get a bonus on things like acrobatics or athletics or intimidation, and it works great out of combat too. It's any skill check, which is just amazing. So, this is one I would definitely recommend if you plan on using skills a lot. Next up is Stocky Frame. You gain a bonus to athletics checks to force open, reposition, and shove, as well as your fortitude DCs against attempts to reposition and shove you. And when you succeed in an athletics check to reposition or shove, you get a critical success instead. In other words, this one is fantastic for moving enemies around. This is one that would be amazing for a soldier. Push enemies around, get them away from your other allies. And this would work really good if you're playing a Pathfinder class like a Guardian in Starfinder. Any class that wants to push people around, this is an awesome feat to take. And finally, for first level feats, we have Teaching of the Forge Father, which requires the quest-bound Dwarf Heritage. You gain the ancestry feats Ancestral Cantrip for the Seek the Stars spell and the Shield spell. Shield is fantastic because more AC is always good. And Seek the Stars, well, that one's a little more situational. You have to be looking for the Starstone or a Drift Beacon, which can be good, but again, is pretty situational. I do not recommend this one except for specific campaigns. For level 5, we'll start with Brave New Reality, which requires the Salvation's End Dwarf Heritage. You gain the Untrained Improvisation General Feats. In addition, you can attempt skill actions that would normally require you to be trained, even if you're not. Another fantastic one. This one is just pretty much be trained in every single skill out there. I mean, granted, you're not getting the +2 because you're not trained in the skills you're not trained in, but you're at least getting a good bonus to every single skill in the game and being able to use skills as if you're trained. This one is fantastic for any class that doesn't get many skills. I highly recommend this if you're a Salvation's End dwarf. Next is Orc Kinship. Believe it or not, you have become friends with dwarves. You gain the Adopted Ancestry General feat, but you must select Orc as the feat's chosen ancestry. You also get 1 first level Orc Ancestry feat. You have no idea how tough Dwarf plus Orc is. I mean, my god. Getting a boost to Constitution, as well as access to Orc Ferocity, makes you practically invincible. Great for soldiers. And then we have Passive Income, which requires the Deep Space Hrangar Dwarf Heritage. You can use Intimidation to earn income in a settlement or other area where your debtors have access to you. But when you earn income in this way, you don't spend time gathering money. Instead, it's delivered to you by a debtor at the end of the day. This allows you to simultaneously perform other downtime activities as long as you can still spend a few minutes every hour interacting with your debtors. This can include things like earning even more income by running a bar or retraining at a gymnasium. This is fantastic. Being able to do 2 things at once during downtime is freaking fantastic, and money is a big deal. I highly recommend this one for any Deep Space Hrangar dwarf. We've got 2 feats at level 9. First is Dwarven Honor. When someone lies to you, you get an automatic secret perception check to sense motive against them. You also gain a +2 circumstance bonus to diplomacy checks to make an impression on creatures that value truth or respect the honor of your word. However, if you have the Deep Space Hrangar Heritage, you instead get a bonus to make an impression on individuals who value crime and deceit. So basically, another great out-of-combat one, because you can tell when people are lying to you a lot better, and you get a bonus to make an impression on people that you would be interacting with anyway. So very, very good. Especially if you're a Deep Space Rengar dwarf, since they get a boost to charisma rather than a flaw. I highly recommend this one for any dwarf though. And then we have Space Worm Slayer. You select one magical tradition. When you successfully strike a dragon, you gain a bonus to damage equal to the number of damage dice. This bonus increases to double the number of damage dice if your target dragon has the trait associated with the magical tradition you picked for this feat. So basically, you get more damage against dragons, and if they happen to have the magical tradition that you picked, then you get even more damage. It's situational. I don't know how common dragons are in Starfinder, but they're probably not all that common. So I'd recommend taking Dwarven Honor over this, in my opinion. At level 13, we have Dwarven Gravity Hammer. You stride twice in a straight line, dealing bludgeoning damage to each creature in your path with a basic reflex save against your class or spell DC, whichever is higher. You move until you meet an obstruction or finish striding twice. The damage increases at 16th level and 19th level. In addition, if you have Dwarven 0G familiarity, enemies have a -2 penalty to their reflex saves against this feat in low or zero gravity. And you can also push off instead of striding, using a creature in the line to push off. Unfortunately, this one is just a bunch of damage. It does make you kind of a threat if you want to keep, because you can keep doing this every round. It does take your full turn, but you can do this every round if you want. And doing damage to multiple enemies is good. However, in a lot of cases, this isn't going to help the party all that much. I don't really like this feat, to be honest with you. But we also have Rabid Excavations, which require the Citadel Dwarf Heritage. During your daily preparations, you can select an implement that you would use for mining, such as a pick or a drill or laser or something like that. You gain a burrow speed of 15 feet while holding or wielding the item, or 20 feet if the item expends ammunition or charges when used. Burrow speed is pretty nice, actually, but honestly, I prefer other dwarf feats instead of this one. I mean, you can definitely use this for mining, which is fantastic with this Citadel Dwarf, but you're not really going to use this in combat. It's just not that useful in combat. Unless you're something like a rogue or an operative. Then you can use it to sneak up on enemies, but, you know, other than that, you're not going to use this in combat. At level 17, we got 2 feats, starting with Clan Crystal Form. You can cast Cairn Form twice per day as a 6th rank primal innate spell. While you are in Cairn Form, increase the damage die size of your clan crystal weapon by 1 step. And double the resistance to laser weapons and effects with the light traits. In other words, this is become a lot more defensive and offensive. Great for becoming a threat. Not that you weren't a threat already, but this makes you an even bigger threat. It does only last 1 minute, but at least you can cast it twice per day, rather than just once. It's very good in boss fights. I highly recommend this one. And then we have Dwarvatonic Weights. When you're in high and extreme gravity, you ignore the effects of it for your carrying capacity, falling damage, jumping distance, and speed. You also don't take bludgeoning damage every minute in extreme gravity. In addition, while in high gravity, your first weapon strike each round that uses a melee weapon that deals bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage gains a bonus to damage equal to the number of weapon damage dice. If you're in extreme gravity, this bonus damage is doubled. This one is situational at best. How many times are you going to be in high or extreme gravity? But when you are, it is going to make you a huge threat. I mean, you're going to be able to move a lot better than a lot of people in that environment. And you're going to do more damage. If you're running into high or extreme gravity a lot, this is an excellent feat to pick up. But only if you're using melee weapons. And unfortunately, Starfinder has a lot of ranged combat, so not a huge deal here. But If you're wanting to play a character that does use melee weapons, this is a fantastic feat to pick up. If you guys enjoyed this video, you may like this other video where I cover the new options for androids. And don't forget to check out the description below for other ways to support me as a creator. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos on this channel for a while, but I've also got a big project that I'm working on for my main channel. So make sure you stay tuned to that for April 20th. Until then, guys, this has been Team Player Gaming, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.